Super Bowl 60 is set. The Seahawks and the Patriots. The MVP candidate versus Sam Darnold? What? The coaching carousel continues to spin. There's a promotion in Buffalo. Not the one you're thinking of, though. Another one that doesn't make that much sense. And it looks like Mike McDaniel went to the Rob Pelinka store for leather jackets as he walked into his introductory Chargers press conference, because he is not going to be a head coach this year. And this historic moment in the NFL has been officially invalidated. I'll explain that in just a moment. It's Martin and Monaco. Alex unable to join us right now. Got some family stuff going on. We wish him the best. He'll be back with us soon. But for now, conference championship are done. Super Bowl is set. And producer Ian Roddy coming in off the bench to play a full role. A little Jarrett Stidham. But Ian, do not fumble. All right? You will not fumble and blow us this game. I know you won't. That was a crazy game. Well, the AFC Championship between the Denver Broncos and New England Patriots. We'll get into some of the decision-making in that game in just a minute. But, Ian, let's talk now about the Super Bowl, because we have a ton of storylines. And I'll tell you, 60-1 for both of these teams prior to the start of the season to make the Super Bowl. And there's about 60 different ways you can look at it. But to me, it starts with the redhead in Seattle.
Yeah, and I will do my best not to fumble and pull a Jarrett Stidham here. I'm going to try to win us this AFC Championship game here. But, yeah, for the NFC side of things, crazy as a Jets fan to see Darnold on his way. Like, he's right there, man. He's one win away from sitting atop the mountain, so it's pretty surreal to see. But I am rooting for him 100%. I want him to prevent the Patriots from establishing another dynasty here. But anyway, that brings us to our first topic here. Just want to ask you, after that game, we see Sam Darnold lead Seattle to the win, throw for 350-plus yards, 3-plus touchdowns. Does this change your outlook on him in any way? Because it felt like coming into the season and even coming into the playoffs, he was seen as a liability. Can't really live up in the big games, but he's a good regular season quarterback, if not high variance. But what do you think about him now? He's on the verge of a Super Bowl title.
The reality of what Sam Darnold's truth is, it really says more about the person doing the evaluating at this point than it does about Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, over the last 2 seasons, has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, period, stop. Right? I, just like everybody else, was walking into that Minnesota thing where he's going to be the starting quarterback. All right, if you feel good about that, Kevin O'Connell, and sure, after week 2 or week 3 or week 4, things started to, but after a while, you have got to be, after a while, you cannot keep lying to your eyes, right? I remember Sam Darnold as a New York Jet and all of that, right? I know Todd Bowles, his head coach, you've seen head coach success now in Tampa Bay, but did not have it in New York, right? And that was a long stretch. But Jeremy Bates as OC, Darryl Loggins as OC. You know what those guys do in the NFL now? They don't. They do nothing in the NFL now. They do not have NFL jobs currently, right? When Sam Darnold was coached appropriately, we have seen nothing but success out of that guy, all right? This is true for most players in the NFL. The only difference with Sam Darnold and the rest of everybody else, we saw him with the Jets. We saw him not be able to be Superman, okay? Sam Darnold's not Joe Burrow. He's not going to change your franchise's pathway and future just by appearing. Okay, he's not Josh Allen. He's not Patrick Mahomes. But what he is a guy that you can win a hell of a lot of games with if you provide him with just a little bit of infrastructure, which is, I feel, to be true for most NFL quarterbacks, right? The difference, what makes Sam special is Sam has arm talent out of this world, right? Now, decision-making, I get it, questionable. But the arm talent is out of this world. So when you see a guy like Sam Darnold, he really, truly reminds me a lot of a guy like Josh Allen, who has obviously the utmost amount of talent. Josh Allen has so much talent when it comes to football, just size, speed, arm talent. It's out of this world. The decision-making has always been questionable with Josh Allen. Now, you saw him after year 3 or 4, you know what I'm saying, really be able to hone in on that. And you said, man, it's almost like a batter who hits a ton of home runs and hits a ton of doubles but strikes out a lot. As soon as Josh Allen stopped turning the ball over so much, it's like, man, this guy really might be the best player in the NFL. And you had people saying that all over the place. Then as soon as that turnover bug comes back, it's like, all right, hold on. So that's really what it is. It's like at his peak, he could be one of the best. At his lowest, he can be, the 15th or something like that, because you're turning the ball over that much, you're really costing your team. That's Sam Darnold.
We've seen him at his lowest, and it was a hell of a lot lower than 15. He was, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. But I do see your point here, because when you put this guy with a good infrastructure around him, this might seem hyperbolic to say, but just from like a raw physical football standpoint, like what does Josh Allen really have that Sam Darnold doesn't? And I get maybe a little more stronger of an arm, maybe a little better rushing ability, but just in terms of he's big, he's physical, he's got a ton of arm talent, questionable decision making. They are very comparable players, which is ironic because they're from the same draft class. I just wonder now if Josh Allen is a guy who's just unanimously seen as someone who's worth that top of the market contract. I don't know where he currently ranks. He might be the highest paid quarterback right now. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
Dak Prescott's the highest paid quarterback right now.
Dak Prescott, correct.
Josh is in a group. Josh is right below Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, the 57 million crew.
He's in that blue chip tier, though, is the point, right? Like
Absolutely.
one of the market leading guys. So if Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl here, does he warrant that?
The benefit of what Seattle has done is it doesn't matter. They've got him on a 3-year deal. He's already locked up for 2 more years, right?
But you know that the best franchises always get out ahead of this stuff. So if they fully win the Super Bowl this year, I feel like they would give him some kind of an extension. Okay. No.
So let's put a pin on the best one. Let's put a pin on that on the extension for right now, because that gets to another point. I think about a greater point about Seattle. Okay. The thing that to finish the Darnold Allen thing. With Josh Allen, you are going to have 10 wow plays a game. Those can either be, wow, that was amazing. Only 6 people on the planet could even think about doing that. Or, wow, that just killed us, right? And with Sam, what you see the Seahawks doing, what the Bills did for a while and got away from, the Seahawks have all types of weapons on offense. They could with JSN and the running game, and then also special teams. They end up Seattle only needs 3 first downs to score touchdowns because of their special teams, their kicking unit, their punting unit, as opposed to teams that will need 4 and 5 first downs, like the Rams, because they are not looking for explosives in other places, right? Buffalo is the same. Buffalo got too Josh Allen reliant, and too many of their wow plays went the other way. There's a perfect balance right now in Seattle where they are getting all of the good wow out of Sam Darnold and mitigating his strikeouts, right? They're mitigating his strikeouts. Sam's the same guy. He's the same guy he was in Minnesota, who got sacked 6 times by the Rams. He's the same guy he was in New York. Right now, he's gotten better, obviously. But he's the same guy. The decision-making is still questionable. It's just we're going to make your decision so easy that you are not going to have to make a question. And the difference between Sam and what some of the other quarterbacks in the NFL have is that ability to have that wow play, right? And that's what sets Sam apart from, like, you know, some of the other. That's what sets Sam apart and puts him closer to a guy like a Josh or Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson. Not there, but closer to there than your average starting quarterback because they have that wow. Now,
yeah.
To point you're making about Seattle, right, and the contract extension for Sam Darnold, I think we have to have a real conversation about John Schneider as a top 3 executive in this league.
Yeah.
He's moved off of, in summation, and this is just a short off the top of the head list, he has moved off of Russell Wilson. He's moved off of Geno Smith. He moved off of DK Metcalf. He moved off of Tyler Lockett. He moved off of Bobby Wagner. He moved off of Richard Sherman. And every single one of those moves worked.
Yeah.
Every single one of those moves benefited Seattle more than it benefited the other team that took him, right? When you look at that's the craziest things about these. This is not a Jared Goff, Matt Stafford type of deal where like both were impactful for the other team. No, Russell Wilson left Seattle and immediately became one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Geno Smith left Seattle and immediately became one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, right? John Schneider has – so I say this. Getting Sam Darnold at 3 years for $100 million guaranteed, the Baker Mayfield deal, is a steal. Whatever deal he's able to work out with Sam, I imagine, will be at this point, I trust John Schneider to be able to figure this out. Yeah. And if he's at a position where he says, look, I'm going to move off of Sam, you know what? Hey, you have the benefit of the doubt for me, at least today.
Yeah, even hiring Mike McDonald, you have to assume that he was in charge of the coaching search. I'm sure he was because he's been there longer than him. And yeah,
so the way it went down to Seattle is John Schneider and Pete Carroll wanted more power, roster personnel, so on and so forth. John Schneider won the power battle, right? Mm-hmm. So John Schneider was definitely in on hiring Mike McDonald.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move over to the other side of things. The Patriots, they're facing a lot of flack right now. I know even Mike Vrabel made a comment about it in his post-game presser where he was like, I know there's going to be a lot of stuff about, our path to get here, but we deserve to be here. And, credit to him. He should be saying that as the head coach. But us as the fans, the viewers, what do you think? You think they really belong here? Because you look at the path they took to get here, easiest regular season strength of schedule. They get to face the Chargers without an offensive line, playoff Justin Herbert in the first round. They get C.J. Stroud in the second, who gives them the ball 4 times. They get Jarrett Stidham in the last round, who, I don't know. Point is, what do you do with these Patriots? Are they really deserving of a Super Bowl appearance right now?
So, the thing that I find the funniest about the conversation about the Patriots' strength of schedule, as if that, excuse me. The thing that I find the funniest about the conversation about the Patriots' strength of schedule, as if we are like ranking resumes, the win-loss is what ultimately matters here, guys. But the thing that I find the most humorous about it, I'm old enough to remember the start of college football season in which people were talking about how Indiana had like a bottom third strength of schedule in the Big Ten. You know what Indiana then did? They came out and won every game they possibly could have won. And you know what they did? They raised a national trophy, championship trophy, and nobody blinked. Nobody said, oh my goodness, look at Indiana, look at who they played. Nobody said Fernando Mendoza, that guy can't play. No, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. Drake Maye is the MVP candidate, likely to be the runner-up, but at the same set, year 2, runner-up for MVP. Congratulations, salute to you, hell of a year. The Patriots did nothing but beat everybody in front of them. They got better every week, more often than not. And in the postseason, understandably so. Okay, Chargers, no offensive line. C.J. Stroud turned the ball over a ton. Well, it wasn't like C.J. Stroud was just turning the ball over like magically. Like there were things happening around him that forced him to do this, right? This is not golf where it's like, no, literally everybody just shanked it into the woods and you were able to win because you kept it on the fairway. The Patriots had to go out there and win these games because while the Patriots have had tons of luck on like the roster and on the depth chart walking into these games, in these games, they have played overwhelmingly good on all 3 phases. They're covering kicks. They're not missing field goals. Defensively, they're taking the ball away. Defensively, they're stopping the run. The biggest question about the Patriots in this stretch, the last 3 games of their playoff run or 2 games of their playoff run, has been the quarterback who was the MVP candidate, right? So, I am not necessarily I get it that they had a little bit of an easier resume. Sure, their test was a little bit easier than some of the other teams that they had to go through in regards of all of that. But it all comes out in the wash, and it's not as if they have not dominated or at least really handled the opponents that they have come up against, right? It's one thing if they're squeaking out these games. They're not.
I mean, if you watch the AFC Championship game, though, they couldn't move the ball. They won that game because Jarrett Stidham tried to play Superman when he shouldn't have. They were winning. if Jarrett Stidham had just done what everyone said he was supposed to do as the backup quarterback there, just did his job, operated the offense, played point guard, and he was doing that up until that point when he took that sack and then the backwards pass ended up giving to them with short field. It was just gift wrap for the Patriots. I gotta say, like, I don't necessarily agree that they've been dominating every game because, you know, you look at the C.J. Stroud thing. Yes, he threw 4 interceptions and the defense plays a part in that, but just watching the game, it's like you see him just throwing it up for grabs as he's getting sacked. I mean, any quarterback with just basic instinct knows not to throw the ball as you're getting sacked. It's just things where he's trying.
Okay,
same thing with Jarrett Stidham.
So
he's trying to
you
play
say
Superman.
that. You say any quarterback with basic instinct knows not to throw the ball when you're getting sacked, and then right then you have 2 instances in games back to back in which they didn't. I make that point to say this: Mike Vrabel he talked about it preseason, how much he was about making sure they didn't beat themselves. That's what the Patriots are not beating. They're not going to get a ton of penalties. They're not going to turn the ball over a ton. They're going to force you to make turnovers, and they're going to win all those different margins. They're not going to miss a lot of field goals. They're going to win in these margins, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they haven't, while they've been maybe 1-score games and stuff like that, there's never been a moment where I can sit there and be like, they should have lost because of this dumb play that they made.
I agree to an extent. I just feel like I come out of every one of these Patriot playoff games thinking both teams deserve to lose this game, and it just always ends up being the Patriots that come out on top. And that's why I don't feel like they feel like a Super Bowl team, even though they have ultimately come out on top of the AFC barely. It just feels like circumstances have gone their way every single time, and maybe I'm just old man yelling at clouds, but I just really feel like they've been historically lucky.
I think that there's more. Like, I think that winning 1-score games to me is like a skill and roster construction, right? So, like, when I'm looking at this, sure, do the Patriots have the star power that some of these other teams have had? No, but on 1 through 53, I think they are so sound and they are in the right place at the right time that just the more football that you play against them, the more likely you are going to make a mistake, which is why they remind me a lot of Indiana. Indiana is waiting for you to throw an interception. They're not going to throw an interception. Indiana is waiting for you to fumble. They're not going to fumble. So that's
true. You're right. It's just when that's your style of play, they've been really fortunate in their matchups throughout the postseason because you're playing against Jarrett Stidham, who's much more likely to make that mistake, that crucial mistake that ends up giving you the chance to win the game. You're playing against C.J. Stroud, who, the way he was playing, he's very likely to give you that mistake. So, I mean, again, you're right. Credit to the Patriots for capitalizing on where they need to have capitalized, and they're just beating who's in front of them. That's not their fault. But, man, it's been a really easy road in my humble opinion. But to shift gears here over to the coaching carousel, a lot of stuff's happened over the last few days. Joe Brady this morning was promoted to the head coach of the Bills. Brian Daboll hired as offensive coordinator of the Titans. You got Jonathan Gannon, new defensive coordinator for the Packers. Mike McDaniel hired as OC of the Chargers. The Eagles are still looking for an offensive coordinator, and the Browns are still looking for a head coach. Also, there's news today that the Jets fired offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand. So still plenty of stuff, still plenty of dominoes to fall. And then there are plenty that have fallen already. So where do you want to start?
I'm going to start with Joe Brady. So, again, I get that, like, some people hear press conferences and they're like, I don't know how much I can trust this or whatever. That's all I really got to go off of. And so when I heard Terry Pegula say that Keon Coleman was the coaching staff's decision in an effort to big up Brandon Beane, who just got promoted, right? Essentially from GM to president and GM. He's going to continue to do both roles, and he's not terribly great at the GM one in the first place, right? Yet he was able to get Josh Allen. Cool. What have you done for me lately in the Janet Jackson way of things? I'm not seeing it with Brandon Beane, right? One of the keys is Keon Coleman. Now, I'm old enough to remember Sean McDermott was a defensive coordinator in Carolina. That's what got him hired as a head coach. So who of the coaches do you think was the one pounding the table for Keon Coleman, as Terry Pegula said? I don't know. probably the offensive coordinator. If there are coaches weighing in on this, probably the offensive coordinator would have a pretty strong opinion if we're gathering opinions from the coaches in the room on who we should draft, right? So we established with the Terry Pegula press conference that the front office and the coaching staff were not on the same page, which is why, ostensibly, you then fire your coaching staff. But you didn't fire your coaching staff. You fired one coach, and you promoted the offensive coordinator, so you're definitely not on the same page that much more, right? You had an opportunity to clean house, and instead of doing that, you removed one guy when, again, part 2 of that Pegula press conference, he wasn't going to fire Sean McDermott until he walks into the locker room in Denver and sees Josh Allen in tears, and Deion Dawkins in tears, and Brandon Cooks in tears, and Josh Allen won't even respond to him when he says, Josh, that was a catch, which we all know it wasn't a catch. It was an interception, and we're all just trying to make people feel better about it. But it was an interception, and it's clear as day it was an interception. I digress. He wasn't going to fire Sean McDermott prior to that. He sees this moment, this emotional moment, my MVP quarterback is in tears. My all-pro left tackle is in tears. What am I going to do? Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I have to get this playoff exorcism out of here. I should have done this after 13 seconds, and since 13 seconds, it's been loss after loss in heartbreaking fashion. Continually, we have to get a little playoff exorcism here. Joe Brady was there. Joe Brady was right there. He was right there crying in the locker room with the rest of them. This year and last year and the year before that. So what I'm saying is I don't understand the plan in Buffalo, which gives me the feeling that there is no plan in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, I think by this point, what with the documentary footage that came out where you can see Brandon Beane saying like, oh, good thing Keon Coleman ran a 4.57 so he falls to us. I think by this point we know that it was actually Brandon Beane and that was just Terry Pegula blowing smoke out of his ass. Whatever. He was just trying to deflect blame away from Brandon Beane and further justify the fact that the guy was getting promoted. But I get it. It's another gotcha moment for Terry Pegula because it's just like, okay, well then if he was not the one responsible, then who do you think was? And it was the offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. So I get what you're saying there. I don't really think that Joe Brady actually was pounding the table for Keon Coleman. It really seems like it was Brandon Beane. But
I'm saying, whatever actually happened,
the
owner of the team, the boss ostensibly about everybody, is saying that is what happened. Right?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
It's funny how differently we view Buffalo now after that one press conference, how damaging that was, because it really just makes it seem like it's a dysfunctional situation when even though they've been in the AFC Championship game multiple times over the past few years, it's like Josh Allen must really be this good that he's elevated that franchise with a dysfunctional owner like that. Or Sean McDermott was really good.
I think
they shouldn't have fired him.
Those were the two things. You had Josh Allen and Sean McDermott.
So are they about to fall apart?
I was thinking about this today. The Buffalo Bills have been one of the worst organizations in my life prior to Josh Allen going there. Mm-hmm. And they had a 7-year run, right? 7-8-year run where they were knocking on the door, couldn't get through. But like once Josh really hit his prime, so it maybe 5-6 year run, however long it's been, right? But it just happened to coincide with the rise of Mahomes and the rise of Lamar Jackson and and kind of the rise and fall of Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, right? But it just happened that all these titans of industry were all packed up on the same side of the division, the same side of the conference. But if they were in the NFC, they probably would have won a Super Bowl by now, or at least definitely would have made a Super Bowl by now, but that's just not how it all breaks down. And you look at it, I'm 36. Until I was 28, they were one of the worst teams in football. And now it looks like, I'm not saying they're just going to fall back into one of the worst teams in football, but when I look at, for example, this is where I frame it, and we'll move on after this. I'm a New Orleans Saints fan. My entire life, I've been a Saints fan. They were terrible my whole life. They got Sean Payton. They were good. Sean Payton left. They were terrible again and continue to be terrible. The difference was Sean Payton. That was the difference. Do you know what I'm saying? That's good. The difference may have been Sean McDermott. Mm-hmm. That just might have been the difference. Now,
well, speaking of Sean Payton, a lot of controversy there from that Patriots game we were talking about a second ago. Should have gone straight to that from there. My bad. But Sean Payton opted to go for it on fourth down instead of taking the points, kicking the field goal, which ultimately looks like it could have been the difference in the game. So do you think he made a mistake there or not?
I think the way that we look at this is a mistake. Like, as a media, as like a talking head space. Because, like, the only way that we grade these types of things, and it's one of the things used to drive me the most upset when John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson were together. We grade, should he have gone for it on whether or not it worked, right? Now, it clearly didn't work. Backfired in his face, 100%. However, when you look at the instant replay of that fourth down play, the guard and center, the right guard and center, do not even make contact with Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. They're in Jarrett Stidham's face before he has even. They're coming back with the ball almost, right, in a shotgun snap. The execution was terrible. And I'm here to tell you, if you lined up for a field goal and didn't block the guy in front of the guard and the center, guess what? You're still not converting points on fourth down. We spend way too much time talking about what the decision was, whether it was the right or wrong one, instead of paying attention to the execution of the decision. Like, for example, we saw the Philadelphia Eagles go for it on 4th and 1 for 2 years straight, and nobody's questioned whether or not it was a good idea or not. You know why? Because you knew you could execute a play that was not going to fail. The question for that was whether or not this play should exist, right? But they knew they had one in the bag that they could run. If you are going for it on fourth down like that, you have got to have a play that is so foolproof that is going to work. That's what I'm saying. It can't just get blown up before it ever started. That play got blown up before it ever started, and it's the same thing that used to happen to Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. We saw it so many times. Lamar will go over to the sideline. Coach, what are we doing here? John Harbaugh will say, what do you want to do? Lamar says, I want to go for it, or I want to go for 2. And then they call some BS play where they roll them out and cut off half the field. They used to do it all the time. And so as a result, it becomes, should they have gone for 2? Should they have taken the points? With a game with your backup quarterback, you know how many times Denver got into the red zone after that? None. That was that was the closest they got for the rest of the game, right? So you want to criticize going forward, I understand. Because, sure, Sean should have known that the snow globe was going to shake midway through the third quarter. It was going to look like an entirely different game, right? Okay, maybe he should have known that. For whatever reason, I don't feel like he should have known that. That feels like it's hard to tell. Like, you could tell it was going to be a storm, but who sees that coming, right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you got meteorology. I assume they have guys that are in charge of that.
But I get it, but it's like I don't know how much you factor that into your game,
right.
your in-game game planning in the second quarter, knowing that at 7 minutes left in the third quarter, there's going to be 8 inches of snow. Like, I don't think that, like, if you are thinking like that, I think you're probably galaxy branding it a step too far.
Yeah. And Denver as a city is notorious for how quickly the weather can change like that. It's just something I doubt they had much of.
But Sean Payton had a run called. They called timeout, and then he went back and called a pass play. You know what that tells me? You shouldn't have gone for it because you didn't have the conviction in your play call, right? Well, you see Sean McVay go for it on 4th and 4 from the 6 in the NFC Championship game. What's this? And then, okay, he's going for it. Okay, ball. Okay, I see you, big dog. You want to go for the win right now. Okay, I see. Then you see him sprinting down the sideline, getting ready to call timeout. You don't have conviction in your play call. You shouldn't be going for it if you don't know this play is going to work. That's my problem.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we shouldn't be on him for the fact that he actually went for it. We should be on him for the fact that he went for it without a play that he had absolute 100% conviction could convert.
Absolutely. Like, it's one thing.
I'm with you.
Because you're Sean Payton. You're supposed to be drawing this up like Michelangelo. You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to be Leonardo da Vinci when it comes to drawing plays. So draw me a play that gets me and I don't care who it is, mind you. You can throw it to the left tackle eligible as long as he's open, right? But show me something that the players fail to execute. Do you see what I'm saying? when you're drawing it up, and then I can give you grace.
For sure. All right, let's pivot one more time here. Shedeur Sanders was named to the Pro Bowl as a replacement for Drake Maye, who, as we've been saying, he's going to be competing in the Super Bowl in a couple weeks, so can't make the Pro Bowl. But Shedeur's in, and very controversial, not only because he's just a polarizing guy in general, but his stats just simply don't seem to warrant your typical Pro Bowl selection. 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. He had like an 18-point-something QB rating out of 100. Just really, really underwhelming stats, to say the least. So what do you think? Does he really deserve to be here, especially when there are other guys who could have had invites from the AFC? Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, Joe Flacco, Joe Burrow, just to name a few.
Joe Flacco.
There's always the option that these guys, or always the possibility that these guys turned it down, and that's what a few people are reporting. But just want to get your thoughts on that. Does Shedeur really deserve to be here?
Does Shedeur deserve to be here is a question that I think everybody understands the answer to. And for the record, I do not fault Shedeur Sanders for being there. They called him, right? They called him and asked him if he wanted to go to the Pro Bowl. It wasn't like
that's part of what's so annoying, though, is he's going to milk this. He loves the fact that he was a Pro Bowler as a rookie, and that's part of what I think is making the general public so annoyed about this. But go ahead.
But it wasn't. Shedeur did not campaign for this. Shedeur did not ask for this. They called him, and he took it. But this is not very controversial. This is actually very simple. All this means is that when we are talking about the best of the best, we are no longer talking about Pro Bowls. That's all. That's all it means. It's not controversial. It's not, what I'm saying? So it's like when Matthew Stafford retires, and we're having the debate of should he be in the Hall of Fame or not, his amount of Pro Bowls selected is standardly irrelevant. It's also very, very low. But it's standardly irrelevant. It became irrelevant when Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl initially, but this is just the final nail in the coffin. So over the last 3 years, it's been dead. And now it's just really, truly the accolade that matters from gaining it is dead. So I'm not talking about Pro Bowl in a concept of, because you know who made the most Pro Bowls on the 49ers offense over the last few years? Kyle Juszczyk.
It's a good guess.
Kyle Juszczyk. And I'm not sure, maybe Trent Williams made more, but Kyle Juszczyk is an insane amount of Pro Bowls because he's the only guy of note that plays fullback in the NFC. Yeah. Is Kyle Juszczyk one of the best players in football?
I mean, at his position, but I get what you're saying, not overall. But,
right.
But I think you're right in terms of the fact that this means that the event is completely irrelevant now. But to me, it's not Shedeur getting the nod that's the nail in the coffin. It's the fact that if these guys are really turning it down, if Trevor Lawrence, he threw 38 touchdowns this year compared to Shedeur's 7. It's not even close who should get the nod there. So to me, Trevor Lawrence had to have turned this down. But that's the nail in the coffin to me, is that guys are actively turning down something that has always been viewed as a career accolade. When Trevor Lawrence retires, however many years down the line, we're going to say Trevor Lawrence, 3-time Pro Bowl or whatever he ends up being, but it will be one less than he should have ended up having because he turned this down when there's not any real reason to turn it down other than just I don't feel like it and I don't care about the nod.
And that's why this is so silly, right? Because there is not a single player in the NBA who would turn down the opportunity to be an All-Star.
Of course not.
Or Major League Baseball.
As stupid as the event even is, they still want the accolade on their resume. And
so, and to my knowledge, I think that if you are voted into the Pro Bowl and don't participate, you still get the Pro Bowl nod. Drake Maye is a AFC Pro Bowler. It will go on his resume. However, he's not going to be in the game because he is, going to be starting in the Super Bowl. It just ultimately is showing this. Okay. The more interesting part about this is that this is why Cleveland doesn't have a head coach. Right? This is why. Mean? This is why Cleveland doesn't have a head coach, because the moment that Kevin Stefanski was fired, okay? It's reported by Jonathan Jones of CBS, who does great work, that the organization is looking forward to who they're bringing in next to be able to work with Shedeur Sanders. All right, Ian, we both went to J school. Let's break it down for those who are uninitiated. Guys like Jonathan Jones and Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and these guys who are reporting things from sources, right? They're being told this from someone. Okay. Kevin Stefanski could have been a source, but you can rule him out because he just got fired, right? Mm-hmm. He's got no interest to talk. He's not talking about what's happening with the Cleveland Browns going forward. Also, with that, again, Jonathan Jones does great work. None of these guys are just making stuff up, all right? Somebody is telling it to them. Who has the authority to say we're looking forward for our next head coach to be working with Shedeur Sanders? Two people.
GM and the owner.
The GM and the owner. Both of whom would be your boss if you're the head coach. You know what I'm saying? So whoever the head coach is, not only do you have to walk in and basically it seems as if you have to take Jim Schwartz as your defensive coordinator, which is something that is just unheard of in the NFL, because here's the thing. If you get one of the 32 head coaching jobs, you damn right I'm going to try to do it my way because I may only get one shot at this. I've been dreaming about this my whole life. I'm not going to have anything foisted upon me if I can help it. And in a situation where there's 10 jobs open, I can probably help it, right? So, no, Jim Schwartz could be a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. I want my vision of what the defense is going to be, so he's not going to be there. I also would love to have my vision of what quarterbacking can be because I know this has to be true about the Denver Broncos when Sean Payton got the job. He did not get the job saying, I will fix Russell Wilson. He got the job saying, I will fix the quarterback position, right? He did not get the job saying 3 or 4 games into Sean Payton's tenure in Denver, Vance Joseph's defense gave up 70 points. He's like, I'm not firing anybody. I'm keeping things together. You can only do that with a certain level of chutzpah that is given to you in your contract, right? He's like, nah, I got too much guarantee. I got 6 years. Y'all are not getting rid of me anytime soon. These are the changes. It buys me time. It buys me patience. What these stipulations in Cleveland do, they buy you nothing at all. They buy you hindrances to your ability to do the job. So the idea that Shedeur Sanders is now a Pro Bowler gives every person who calls in a 93.7 The Fan in Cleveland that much more ammunition against what they feel was a gross injustice by Kevin Stefanski, which I kind of feel the same way about. Stefanski really didn't handle that quarterback situation the right way, regardless of how it all played out. It gives them real credence to conspiracy theories. But also, whoever the next guy is, if you come in and Dylan Gabriel all of a sudden tears it up in practice and Shedeur Sanders looks like he's throwing with the wrong hand, nobody's going to believe you. Nobody's going to believe you. Ben McAdoo, and I'll leave it at this, and I know there's wildly different quarterbacks. Ben McAdoo made the decision to bench Eli Manning at halftime. Eli Manning had started every game for the Giants since the first Bush administration, basically, right? And then Ben McAdoo makes the decision to bench him at halftime and then start Tyrod Taylor the next week. Eli Manning was done as a quarterback. Honestly, at that point, he was his best years were far beyond where he was at that point in time. But it was the way that Ben McAdoo did it that got him fired. There was no coming back from disrespecting a legend like Eli Manning in New York. I am not saying Shedeur Sanders is anywhere near the cachet and level that Eli Manning was at New York, but you have a fan base in Cleveland that looks at Shedeur Sanders in a way of like, who's going to do him wrong? Which is the same thing that they looked at Ben McAdoo. They looked at, he did Eli wrong, and it got him fired, and you haven't really heard from him since. Who's going to do Shedeur wrong? That's why they don't have a coach right now.
In that same vein, though, with this Pro Bowl selection, though, like, again, the guy threw 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. I don't want to hear any more about how the league's out to get him, with his draft fall and stuff. Like, he just made a Pro Bowl as a rookie after throwing more interceptions than touchdowns. The league is not out to get this kid, okay? They're trying to build them up and give them every opportunity to succeed.
Right. If this is a targeted attack, somebody could target me.
Right, exactly. Well, that's the show. So appreciate everyone for tuning in as always, and we will talk to you guys next week.